Greetings, gameroids. Have you ever laid back on your crusty couch and thought up an epic scenario in your head where you are somehow transported into early medieval period on some made-up continent that happens to be somewhat inspired by the structure of Europe? And what does this mountain bladder have to do with this? It sounds like some Scottish medical condition for extreme whiskey consumption. Well, the Mountain Blade series is one of those games with zero competition because the formula is truly one of a kind. Developed by a medium-sized Turkish game company, Tailwords Entertainment, their first Mountain Blade game was released in 2008 and then was technically enhanced and pretty much re-released in 2010 as Mountain Blade Warband. The game didn't grasp the mainstream audience because, well, on the surface it was a clunky mess combined with very outdated graphics even for the time.
I love you and I want you in my life.
But underneath all that, there was a very unique game that attracted even the deepest of troglodytes such as myself to hundreds of hours of eye-torturing gameplay. The strongest selling point was how incredibly moddable the game was, and it actually had one of the strongest and highest of quality modding communities there is. But then in 2016, when they announced they're making Mountain Blade 2 Bannerlord, they promised everything that Warband had, but newer and much better. So after 6 years of waiting, trailers, and early access builds, we finally have the full release of the game. Now I'm fully qualified to finally answer the question, was it really worth it? But before I start, let me remind you beautiful humanoids that I stream here on YouTube. So whenever you see some random unfunny thumbnail appear in your feed, it's probably me playing some weird niche game.
Okay, listen.
The fuck is sound effect? Yelling the Game Award at people online, or hosting game events with viewers that you can join, so I'll see you there. Oh, and don't forget to comment down the last time you touched some grass. Use military time for precise detail. In a short summary, Bannerlord is a game where you can rise from being a dirty little peasant to a fancier little peasant, find yourself a sighty young noble lady, bribe her cruel yet generous father into arranging your marriage with her, impregnate her with a beautiful bastard, and then proceed to beat the ever-living soul out of your new pregnant wife over and over again in a local tournament. What can I say? Equal rights, equal fights. Upon starting the game, you get to pick between the campaign and Sandbox. The only difference between the two is that the Sandbox has no main questline, which isn't all that fun anyway. I only really recommend it for the first playthrough. You then pick your character's ethnicity and race. The fictional land of Calradia, where you will be tossed into, features 6 major ethnic groups. The Imperials, based on the Byzantine Empire, the Valindians, based on feudal Western Europeans, the Sturgians, based on Slavs of the Kievan Rus, the Khuzaites, based on the Eastern Steppe tribes such as the Mongols, the Batanians based on Celtic tribes, and finally the Aserai based on the Arabian tribes. Picking your ethnicity gives you specific bonuses, affects to your spawn, and makes every other ethnic group hate your guts whenever you try to govern them. You then make your character, craft him a state-approved backstory, which affects your stats and starting gear, and pick your difficulty settings and preferences. And here you're all alone, a pathetic little mama titty milk consumer in a massive open world, where nobility wants nothing to do with you, because you smell like liquid thiacetone, and bandits want nothing more than to spread your tight cheeks along the stone-paved road. Now, it is very likely that your first adventure will end abruptly after your plump ass gets caught by looters who will gangbang the skull out of your head, steal your last morsel of grain, and kidnap you for ransom that nobody is willing to pay. But it doesn't have to happen that way. There are actually numerous ways of playing the game, and you are not forced to play in any specific way, nor is there any sort of time limit outside of the fact that your character is getting older, and unless you have a beautiful heir, that's a game over. You can go village to village recruiting volunteers, effectively forming your own little warband, battling bandit factions, and ransoming survivors for money. In between that, you can train in the arena, recruit companions with heartstring-pulling backstories, and find and win in organized tournaments for prizes, bets, and more renown. As you win battles and engagements, you earn money by selling loot, upgrading your warband, increase your renown and the level of your clan, which will eventually pique the interest of the local nobility, who would then allow you to become their vassal. Now, joining Sultan's fanboy harem isn't something you're interested in. You may become a mercenary warband instead, joining a kingdom for a limited time for money, experience, and rank grind by fighting in their wars against massive armies. Eventually, you may just be lucky enough to find a recently taken castle with a garrison small enough for you to take on by yourself with your warband, and to form your own kingdom. But beware, because the castle you just took, well, that one belongs to a leader of some clan, and he most definitely won't like what you just did to him, because that's kinda rude. And as a matter of fact, he might not like it so much that he will come to the doorstep of your new home and show you his new awesome trebuchets and a very big battering ram. If you do choose to become a vassal, you can still end up being a king by climbing the social ladder, but being a vassal, of course, is much easier than being a king. All you have to do is know how to take orders and be a good little cum dumpster. And why would you do that? Well, you see, when a war breaks out and your faction is winning, it's most likely going to conquer new lands, that being big castles and cool towns. And if you're well liked amongst other vassals, especially the king, you're much more likely to be voted as the owner of said big castles and awesome towns. You then have multiple options. You can either remain a loyal vassal until an unfortunate accident happens and a leader is no more, or you can respectfully resign from being a vassal, forfeit your lands, and shake the hand of the king, thank him for the awesome time you spent together, and be on your merry way to retirement. Or you can be a little less respectful by not forfeiting your fiefs, effectively declaring an open rebellion and breaking away from the kingdom, forming your own in the process. If kingdom politics bore you can postpone all of that and focus on becoming Calradia's most wanted scumbag instead. Dedicate all your skills to roguery, recruit defeated bandits, conspire with local gang leaders, attack caravans, villages, and capture nobles for a ransom.
You know we're at war! Surrender or die!
Now that is an unpleasant set of options. How about we just not fight today?
Nah!
The entire continent may want you dead, but they just upset because you mad gangsta. Or maybe fighting isn't really down your alleyway, and therefore you can indulge yourself in the art of the trade. Start by buying goods in the city that produces them and sell them where they're needed the most. Form caravans with dedicated routes, buy every workshop in town with a production of choice, and monopolize any resource you want. And just maybe you can become the reason an entire city's prosperity goes to shits. Or just dedicate your entire life to being the best smith on the continent. You can create and fully customize your entire set of weapons and either use them and give them to your companions or just sell them on the market. This is a very long process as it takes a shit ton of time. Now the most important skill to learn is to do everything I listed all at once. Now let's talk about the most important part of the game, the combat. You can switch between first and third person view, but if you actually want to win a fight and not record awesome immersive combat live leak footage, you might want to stick to third person and enjoy the magnificent view. The combat is one of those super easy to learn but incredibly hard to master. Don't believe me? Join a battle lobby online and see what happens to your testicles. There are 4 attack directions, left and right side, overhead and bottom thrust. To select in which direction you want to attack, you have to move your camera in that direction. If you want to block an attack, you have to block in the same direction of the attack in order for it to be successful. Shields will still work regardless of which direction you block with, but if you still block in the right direction with the shield, it will take less damage. You can also parry, chamber blocks, combo attacks, feint attacks, couch lances, brace spears, kick, and shield bash. If by the end of the training your character does not look like this, you are doing something wrong. There are a lot of weapons and damage types, each effective for their own scenario. The game also has a very in-depth perk system, unique for every attribute, ranging from combat skills such as one-handed weapon skills and archery to daily geezer lifestyle skills such as engineering and social. Now the other aspect of combat is the battles, which is the most unique part about this game. Battles are very large scale and immersive. Your role in the battle depends on your rank. If you're an independent figure, you get to control your men. If you're a low-ranking vassal, you're most likely not gonna get shit, but if you're a well-liked vassal, you'll be assigned a specific unit like the infantry or ranged infantry, for example. You can split your forces into different units, assign commanders each with their own bonuses, place them in formation, and so on and so forth. Everything you do is in real time and depends on the situations. You are required to burst a brain tumor every time you strategize like a true tactician. Now once you get better and your character gets a lot stronger, well, the thing is, your character can get really strong. So strong in fact, to the point where you're pretty much the anvil in the weight of balance. Your goal is to become the one-man army, reaching a supersonic speed and one-tapping a gate with a pitchfork. The more you play the game, the more you notice that you alone can get at least 50 to 100 kills every fight, effectively eliminating 1/4 of the enemy's troops by yourself. During the battle, soldiers can either die or get knocked out. If they do get knocked out, you can take them prisoner and ransom them for the price equivalent of a 6-inch sub. Same goes for an ability. They can either permanently die, get captured, or escape. If you do capture them, you can either hold them prisoner until the war is over, so that they cannot recruit more men and aid the war effort. You can release them to increase their relationship with you, ransom them for money, or bring them to justice by executing them for having a terrible taste in women. If you do choose to execute a lord, it won't be just their family members who will hold a grudge, but also every merciful person in the entire world will like you slightly less. There's just so much more to the game that you have to experience by playing yourself. The vanilla game also features multiplayer, which is also really fun. Well, if you do like getting apprehended, tased, pepper sprayed, tied, and brutally molested, which is a short summary of how you will feel when you encounter the active player base of the game. That is why I definitely recommend you playing single player first. Vanilla multiplayer features captain mode, which is 6v6 non-response, but each player controls a unit of AI, and a variety of battle and siege modes. Now to the most important bit, I do need to stress that this game is very moddable. And Mount and Blade modding community is one of the most hardworking and talented mod makers that I have ever seen. Since complete mod tools just came out, most of the mods are still being worked on. There are 2 main categories of mods, single player and multiplayer, and they range from full out total conversion mods such as the Lord of the Rings mod, Game of Thrones mod, Warcraft mod, and so on, to quality of life improvements and features. And trust me when I say this, even if you just want to play vanilla single player experience, you still have to use mods because they're really really enhance the game, and most of them feel like they should be in the base game to begin with. Now, because I love you guys so much, I'm going to share with you my absolute necessary mod list for an amazing enhanced vanilla experience. Better diplomacy, better battles, more gear, ability to make your own unit trees, ability to promote your soldiers to companions, and so on and so forth. Long story short, Mountain Blade is pretty good. 11 out of 10. Now, if you excuse me, I need to get back to the grind. Thank you so much for watching this shit. Let me know of any other games you want me to showcase next. I'll have a good one.